Hey everybody, Dave here with another candidate for Game of the Year 2017. This time we're looking at Destiny 2. This is one I've wrestled with for a while for one simple reason. For all its faults, and they are legion, I'm having fun, and for that reason, I can forgive a lot. Now let's start with the loot box system. It's often excused as being purely cosmetic, but customizing your avatar is an integral part of any role-playing or MMO experience. And I don't care what Activision Bungie say, this is an MMO. Just because you don't want it to be called an MMO doesn't mean you can take a ton of MMO mechanics, put them in your game, and then insist that it's not an MMO because you'd rather it be called a shared world shooter. First off, that's not a thing. Second, you can't change a thing just by insisting everyone call it something else. Otherwise, I'd insist everyone call me Sex Master in exactly that voice. Character customization is vital to making the character's journey seem like a personal one, especially when you know every other person playing the game is getting the same "You're our only hope" speech. On top of that, the character creation is so limited to begin with, it necessitates cosmetic customization options in order to make your character look distinct in any way. Top that off with the fact that with a few exceptions, every suit of armor looks different only in so much as the player's class is different, and I'd argue that offering cosmetic customization at no extra charge is the least you can do. In addition, you've got the shaders, which are consumable, meaning rather than unlocking a certain color palette, you can add that color scheme to one item once. Sure, there's no lack of shaders in the game, to such an extent that I actually don't have room for them in my inventory. But a lot of them are variations on the same set of neutral grays and earth tones that look like someone swiped the color palette from one of the old Quake games, looking like dirt and stone with some sickly greens and slightly different dirt thrown in for variety. Then there's the level design that seems deliberately structured to make a small map feel much larger by requiring players to navigate a series of habit trails through corridors and broken buildings so that it takes half a minute running and jumping to get to a point 20 meters from where you started. But all of this I was willing to overlook and give Destiny 2 Game of the Year for one simple reason. It was fun! So much fun! From the sound and feel of the guns to the recoil and the vibration feedback through the controller to the damage each weapon type dealt and how much it balanced with the control of the weapon, the combat mechanics were a symphony of destruction, a glorious ballet of violence and explosions. And while the jump mechanics took some getting used to, I eventually found tremendous freedom in sending my warlock soaring over the battlefield in a long, graceful arc, and the feeling of lining up a shot on an enemy while doing so, then no-scope one-shotting them right in the face is so supremely satisfying. The combat isn't without issue. For instance, while a warlock gets a healing or strengthening rift and a titan can spawn a wall to block all damage to one side or offer tactical cover while reloading your weapons, what do hunters get? A dodge. That's it. A little twirling leap to one side, and while it may reload your weapon or recharge your melee attack, it won't do much if you're facing a dozen enemies like you do in just about every fight. And even if there's cover nearby, your lack of peripheral vision is going to make it as likely you're going to spin right into it rather than behind it. To top things off, it's the only class move that cannot possibly help the rest of a fire team in combat. A pretty major oversight, it would seem, from a developer that is stressing the need to have a coordinated fire team in the later game content. This brings me to the LFG system, which is non-existent. As I've stated on the podcast, I tried using the guided game system and wound up waiting 2.5 hours to find a fire team I could run Leviathan with. Trials of the Nine doesn't even have a matching system. You have to show up having already assembled a full fire team of 4 people to even begin the activity. Contrast that with Strikes and Crucible, where matching happens automatically. True, raids require a higher level of coordination, communication, and support. I assume Trials of the Nine does as well, though I've no idea since I can't play it. As such, random matchups can present problems, but you'd still expect there to be some way of matching players in-game. It's the bare minimum you expect from an MMO. In fact, I think this is the main reason Activision Bungie wants this to be called anything other than an MMO, because they want to make an MMO but can't be bothered to put in some of the basic systems players expect and even need to play through an MMO. Instead, what we get is the Destiny 2 app, a separate program run on a separate device that in no way interacts with the world of Destiny 2. In running the Leviathan raid, I had 3 devices going in front of me. My PS4, my phone with the Destiny 2 app on it, and my tablet with articles pulled up explaining how to progress through the various rooms. A requirement, as the game makes no effort to indicate how you're meant to get through each room, as there is a lot more to it than the usual go to checkpoint, kill everyone, repeat as needed. And to call these things puzzles is a little unreasonable. It would be more accurate to compare getting through these rooms to trying to build a piece of furniture having only some wood, a bag of screws, and a few dozen dowels, and having no idea what item of furniture it's even meant to be in the first place. I've laid out a lot of issues with Destiny 2 here, but I'd have still been willing to hand it Game of the Year. Predatory greed and occasionally half-baked design aside, for the simple reason that I'd sunk countless hours into it, run 2 characters up to the level cap, and was halfway through my 3rd, and I was still having fun. There's not a lot of games I can say that about. Then Curse of Osiris came out, and I was forced to reevaluate. Initially, I wasn't going to buy it. The fact that it raised the level cap to 25 was great, but it bothered me that you only got this benefit if you bought the expansion. The season pass of $35 combined with the original price of $60 meant that you now had a game that cost just under $100. But I had a trade-in credit, and nothing else caught my eye, so Curse of Osiris it was. The plot makes about as much sense as anything from Bungie, which is to say none at all. Osiris is a warlock of legend, an Ikora's teacher who preached some heretical prophecies, the precise nature or context of which is never discussed, though it is suggested that whatever it was, he was right, and the current Vex activity has something to do with it. Like I said, it's Bungie. Writing is not their strong suit. If you want plot and characters, you need to go over to BioWare, and bring your time machine because you'll have to go back a few years. In addition to the level cap issues I mentioned earlier, Activision Bungie pulled a massive dick move and raised the required power levels for raids from 270 for prestige raids and 280 for the guided games version to 300 and 310 respectively. And they did the same thing for the Nightfall strikes. If that doesn't sound bad, there's something you should understand about Destiny 2's endgame. Once you hit the level cap, your power maxes out at around 270. From there, your power increases at a maddeningly slow pace. It took me weeks of grinding to bring my Warlock from 270 to 280, the minimum level for the Leviathan guided games, which seemed my only hope of ever finishing it. With Curse of Osiris, that grind went from 10 points to 40. Now, if you bought Curse of Osiris, it's no problem. With the new level cap, my hunter went from 250 to 300 in one night, and from 300 to 310 the next. If you didn't buy the new content, though, then a large chunk of gameplay was completely taken away from you and hidden behind a paywall. Again, this is something you had access to, something that was part of your game, and Activision Bungie took it away from you because you didn't pay them more money. If I'd known that before I bought the season pass, I'd have turned off the game and never touched it again, but as Pulp said, now it's all over. You've paid your money, and you've taken your choice. What a bunch of dicks. Activision Bungie, I mean, not Pulp. Now they've since backed down saying they made a mistake. This is what every publisher says when they try to slip something past players and they get caught. They call it a mistake. Really? Did someone trip and fall and happen to mash their face on a keyboard that was actively editing code and that's where those numbers came from? That would have been a mistake. This was deliberate, and it's nothing new. Destiny, the original, pulled the same thing. The difference now is that Battlefront 2 and the bad taste it left in everyone's mouths is still fairly recent in players' memories, and its fetid corpse stench is still lingering in the air. As a result, everyone is still angry and disinclined to let publishers screw with them like this. In a statement, Activision Bungie informed players they'd be lowering the required power levels for the Prestige, Leviathan raid, as well as Nightfall strikes. Trials of the Nine, which had been completely locked off if you didn't own the new content, would now only be locked off if the map was from Curse of Osiris. I have 2 issues with this. First, why was it not like that in the first place? It makes no sense to lock off content entirely. Seriously, I can't understand what non-malicious line of logic would lead to a conclusion where this made sense to do. I could see how it made sense if you were trying to be a massive jerk and extort fans into buying your expansion, but I cannot conceive of a series of benevolent motives that results in this decision. Second, it feels like a mistake to me. Letting players without Curse of Osiris play on the Trials map would be a good way to give them a taste of what they're missing. They get to play on a cool new map, Activision Bungie gets more active players in-game and engaged in Trials, and maybe afterwards some of them think that was pretty cool. I should get that. That's how you used to sell games without being an asshole, not by hoarding all the toys and kicking people out, but by giving people a little and letting them know you have more if they want it. It's what the industry itself did for years with demo discs and continues to do with free play weekends and open betas. There are more details on the changes, and you can check out Activision Bungie's post for those. If you want to read it, there's a link in the description. This is why at the end of the Battlefront 2 video, I told everyone to stay angry. This is the kind of thing that happens when players remember how badly they were screwed over in the past and refuse to let it happen again. This backtracking is what happens when consumers stay angry. I have no doubt Activision Bungie will revert to more of the same habits in the future, and it's why I'm not settled on the idea of Destiny 2 as Game of the Year. It may still take the title, but I don't like its odds. But even if it does win, I think I can safely say it's going to make me feel just unclean. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, like and subscribe, hit us up on Facebook and Twitter with the hashtag LTRGOTY, and let us know your picks for Game of the Year, and as always, you can email us at loottheroompod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and as always, hunt the Wampus.